This is a massive breakthrough. SpaceX and the Polaris Dawn crew have just successfully completed the first-ever commercial spacewalk, showing the rising power and influence of the private sector, especially SpaceX, in the realm of space exploration. So, how did SpaceX pull off this historic spacewalk? What did they do, and what can we expect for the future? Let's find out in today's episode. Splashdown of Dragon confirmed. Welcome back to Earth. These words marked the successful conclusion of the Polaris Dawn mission, a groundbreaking journey in the history of commercial spaceflight. At the heart of this mission was the first-ever private spacewalk, a feat that has opened a new chapter for the civilian space industry. The crew conducted their spacewalk on Thursday while orbiting at an altitude significantly higher than the International Space Station, even surpassing the Hubble Space Telescope. The moment when Commander Jared Isaacman and SpaceX engineer Sarah Gillis opened the hatch and stepped out into space became one of the most awe-inspiring scenes in space exploration history. For the first time ever, astronauts who weren't part of a national space agency performed an extravehicular activity. Now let's take a closer look at this incredible mission. Although the spacewalk took place on the third day of the mission, the preparations for this bold and thrilling display began the moment the crew left the launch pad. Less than an hour after liftoff, while the astronauts were still adjusting to zero gravity, they started following a special breathing protocol known as pre-breathe. The purpose of this procedure was to reduce nitrogen levels in their bodies and minimize the risk of decompression sickness. Over the next 3 days, the crew underwent a process called campout, where Dragon's cabin pressure was gradually lowered from 14.5 to 8.6 psi, or from 100 to 59 kilopascal. Simultaneously, the oxygen levels inside the cabin were carefully increased to ensure a safe balance. After reaching a record-breaking altitude, Dragon lowered its orbit to about 700 kilometers in preparation for the spacewalk. Unlike the International Space Station or larger spacecraft, Dragon isn't equipped with an airlock. This meant that the entire cabin had to be depressurized during the EVA, exposing all 4 crew members to the vacuum of space at the same time. This set a new milestone in space history. Never before had so many people, yes, 4, been directly exposed to the vacuum of space simultaneously. Therefore, the entire crew donned their EVA suits. SpaceX's EVA suits were pressurized with 100% oxygen at 5.1 pounds per square inch, creating a safe environment for the astronauts while allowing them more mobility compared to the heavier traditional spacesuits. The Polaris Dawn mission's spacewalk lasted about 26 minutes and 40 seconds, from the moment the hatch opened until it was sealed again. Jared Isaacman, the mission commander, was the first to step outside the spacecraft, followed by Sarah Gillis, a SpaceX engineer. The moment was truly unforgettable and has become one of the most iconic in the history of space exploration. From a record-breaking altitude for private astronauts, they witnessed a view that only a handful of people throughout human history have ever seen. Earth appeared from this awe-inspiring height, set against the pitch-black sky of space. Surrounding them was the vast, endless expanse, both majestic and unforgiving. This sight stirred a profound emotional paradox. On one hand, it made them feel incredibly small in the face of the mysterious universe. On the other, it sparked pride and wonder, realizing that these tiny beings had managed to reach such incredible heights. Back to the spacewalk, we could see that when Isaacman and Gillis stepped outside the spacecraft, their movements appeared somewhat puppet-like. However, this wasn't due to clumsiness or inexperience. It was a critical part of testing SpaceX's new EVA suit. Every movement, no matter how small, was deliberate, meant to assess the suit's performance in a microgravity environment. Specifically, they tested hand and body control, vertical movement, and the use of foot restraints, all vital skills for future EVA missions. During this process, only the lower part of their legs remained inside the spacecraft, while the rest of their bodies were fully exposed to the vacuum of space. SpaceX outlined 3 primary tests to evaluate the EVA suit's mobility and weightlessness. The first test focused on controlling the entire body using just one arm. The astronauts assessed their ability to move in all directions, hold a posture for 10 to 15 seconds, and maintain that position while the other arm simulated the use of tools. This ability is critical for repair and maintenance tasks in space, where astronauts often have to work with one hand while using the other to stay in place. The second test evaluated their vertical movement using the Skywalker system. Isaacman and Gillis used both horizontal and vertical bars of the Skywalker to test their ability to reach maximum reach. Being able to move fluidly efficiently in a vertical direction is crucial during EVA missions, especially when working on large structures like space stations or spacecraft. The final test focused on the use of foot restraints, key tool for helping astronauts stabilize themselves in space. Jared and Sarah assessed their ability to move while being securely fastened, hold their position when hands-free or using tools, and recover when one foot accidentally slipped out of the restraint. During the broadcast of the spacewalk, listeners could hear numbers like 2, 3, and 4 being called out. These were actually ratings that Isaacman and Gillis were giving to assess the level of difficulty or resistance they encountered when performing specific movements. The Polaris Dawn EVA was not just an inspiring spectacle. It marked the beginning of something much bigger. SpaceX, through this mission, was putting their first-ever EVA suit to the test. Throughout the spacewalk, they gathered valuable data on how the human body reacts to a microgravity environment. This mission was also an opportunity to test the Starlink satellite system in the context of space travel. In essence, this mission was about building knowledge and experience. They're testing hardware, software, and collecting the insights needed for more ambitious spacewalks in the future. Think about this. The first NASA EVA was a tethered spacewalk during Gemini 4, lasting 23 minutes. The comparison draws an intriguing parallel between SpaceX's journey and the early stages of the U.S. space program. SpaceX is, in many ways, walking a similar path. The Polaris Dawn mission, while undoubtedly historic, may also be just the humble first steps in a long and ambitious journey. Behind these public achievements lies a far greater ambition, the dawn of an era where private companies can explore space entirely independent of government agencies. In the Polaris Dawn mission, aside from Isaacman, one individual who stood out to me was Sarah Gillis. Currently, Sarah Gillis holds the role of lead space operations engineer at SpaceX, overseeing the astronaut training program for Crew Dragon mission. To give you some perspective, she prepared NASA astronauts for both the Demo 2 and Crew 1 missions, and trained the Inspiration 4 crew, the first all-civilian team to fly into orbit. On this spacewalk, Sarah Gillis personally carried out the extravehicular activity, giving her first-hand experience and the chance to integrate those lessons into future astronaut training programs. Unbelievably, she's only 30 years old. Yes, she's now the youngest person ever to complete a spacewalk. But more than that, when I look at her, I see SpaceX's hidden weapon. It seems like this is a smart strategy by SpaceX, nurturing and developing talent from within. By investing in young talent like Sarah, SpaceX is shaping the future of space exploration from the inside out. Polaris Dawn isn't just another commercial flight. It's a trial run, a rehearsal for even more ambitious missions to come, especially those venturing to Mars. Naturally, with any experiment comes a wealth of data, rigorous analysis, and a drive for improvement. SpaceX is undoubtedly very busy right now. Their engineers and scientists will spend months, if not years, meticulously analyzing every bit of data, from the performance of each hardware component to the physiological responses of the crew in zero gravity. And I'm almost certain that SpaceX is already working on the next generation of EVA suits. Jared Isaacman, the mission commander for Polaris Dawn, shared on Twitter, "The EVA suits are night and day from the original IVA suits. They contain more than a dozen layers of MLI, redundancy on seals, vents, valves, new visor, lots of rotators and joints, HUD, camera. They are very rigid when pressurized, as are all EVA suits. We have rotator joints and stitching throughout the suit for mobility, and the primary purpose of the EVA operation is to gather data on suit performance. It is definitely not a suit for Mars, but at least the journey has begun to make it that way." Clearly, this EVA suit is just the beginning. The company will continue to research and develop, with the ultimate aim of creating a spacesuit capable of withstanding the harsh conditions of Mars. Alright, that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth looks at the latest advancements in space technology. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.